Andrew McCart, IFLTV. What an absolute honour it is on a Tuesday morning to be speaking with Mr. Gareth A. Davies. Gareth, it's been a while, my friend. How are you?
Well, I saw you across the room in Riyadh a couple of months ago. We didn't have much engagement. I was taken up by Talk Sport.
Hmm.
I'm glad we're 300 miles away today, so you can't lay hands on me once again, which you tried to do the last time I saw you. But it was a hand on my shoulder,
Yes.
recording a post-event thing. Listen, I hear your fighting days are over, so I'm safe now.
Yeah, well, I've got three young professional fighters now that I'm hoping to get to the point where they get interviewed by Gareth A. Davies. I think that's the achievement. They don't want to be world champions. They don't want to be. They just want what. Ask them, what do you want out of the sport? I want to be interviewed by Gareth A. Davies. That's
Well,
what
once I start doing that to them,
they know.
this
Shut
Vegas.
up. Yes. Yeah, I remember it very well. Yeah, Gareth, can you play that piano? Can you play that? Yeah.
I'm okay at it. I'm not going to
Right.
play it today. I've refused on every Zoom call because I'm still learning certain things.
I'm just
But
intrigued.
I
Yeah.
do have lessons, and I do love playing the piano. Ozzy Osbourne there, by the way.
I see it.
The
Yep.
Ramones there.
Uh-huh.
The Ramones. Are you
Yeah,
old enough?
The Ramones. Yeah, I know the Ramones. Yeah, I'm old enough to remember
Yeah.
the Ramones.
I was actually celebrating like Annie Lennox and Dave Stewart and the Tourists the
Hmm.
other day before she became the Eurythmics, and I've taken to watching those old kind of episodes of Top of the Pops on BBC BBC Four. Is it Channel BBC? What's it called? Is it
No, that's
Channel Four BBC?
BBC
BBC?
Four. No, it's BBC Four.
Is it? It is
Yeah,
BBC Four,
BBC Four.
BBC
Yeah.
Three, on a Sunday sometimes. But because I know that you love a bit of music as well, because we've had a little sing song every now and again.
We do. We do. Listen, people might
One
think,
day I'll play the piano for you.
and I'll do the singing. Is that what you're saying?
Lovely,
Let's
lovely.
do it. Well, listen, this is a boxing channel, Gareth, and we do like to talk about boxing. I'll tell you what, this past weekend we've seen two fights either side of the pond with just drama, a storyline that we thought we'd never see in boxing. Well, I suppose the Crocker fight, but Tank Davis taking a knee, not being counted the knockdown, and then Paddy Donovan with that disqualification. A couple of punches after the bell. Now, I'll start with the Belfast show because it's closer to home. Just give me a brief summary of your thoughts on that fight, and then we'll break it down. We'll talk a little bit more on it.
Well, there was controversy on controversy on controversy. There
Okay.
were. It was a rough, brutal. It was a roughhouse brawl, basically, in Belfast. Crocker likes a brawl anyway. We didn't think it would be as one-sided. Most people didn't think it would be as one-sided as it was, even though Andy Lee's been telling me for ages. Andy Lee versus Billy Nelson again, by the way. Joseph Parker and Martin Bacoli from a couple of weeks ago. And Andy Lee's been telling me for ages, and I've had Paddy Donovan in the studio at TalkSport, and he's very impressive. From a huge boxing family in Limerick, travellers,
Mhm.
but literally dozens of them have boxed in the family. There's 100 Donovans in Limerick. Not, and some of them are a bit naughty, as he was telling me as well. You know, but he's stayed on the right side of the law all his life. He's a very tough man. I thought he was dominating the fight against Crocker. Billy Nelson's claimed an elbow at one point, which was there in the fight. The heads did clash a lot, southpaw and orthodox, which, as you know yourself, Andy, happens a lot in fights when guys are in that style where they go in like you were when you fought. You used your head a lot as your third. Yeah, exactly. You had three punches, left, right, and head. The
The
Glasgow kiss, as we call it.
Glasgow kiss, exactly,
And I
guy.
do. I don't ever want to experience it. I want
You
to
were
do
that
that.
you were
Glasgow
that
kiss.
close in Vegas to getting the Glasgow kiss.
Outside, no! Before Bob Arum intervened.
Bob Arum, yeah. Oh,
Believe
Bob
it,
Arum.
Bob Arum stopped us having a scrap.
What? Listen, I wish that was filmed properly. I wish somebody had the amount of phones and cameras there is nowadays, and not one video of that.
I'm very glad that you, looking like a raging bull, ready to go, like this, is not on camera.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. That's very
It's
true.
it's too. It's a scary sight, you know.
Yeah.
Literally, the only place I wanted to leave was for the gents at that point.
Well, listen, Gav, you know we're friends now, and what do they say? It's
You
water.
know I'd take you though. That's the problem, and everybody knows
Yeah,
that
it's
right
the head
now.
kick. It's the head
The
kick.
head,
Yeah, the head kick. I'm worried about. Uh, Yes.
Listen, I'm a writer and a broadcaster, not a fighter and a lover, and you're the fighter, not me. And now you've retired, it'll never happen unless we have a little pinky competition or
Arm
whatever it is.
wrestle. Arm wrestle.
An arm wrestle, which you'd win anyway. But the thing is, at the weekend, I thought Marcus McDonald, who was called Howard Foster
Yeah.
by
David.
Dave Diamante when he announced it as well. So it was confusion on controversy. I thought Marcus McDonald, Crocker was about to be finished in my view. I know we've seen guys recover in fights like that and come back, and he's that kind of guy. I thought Donovan was about to finish him. Marcus McDonald should have got nearer them, I think, almost between them when the 10-second clacker went. He should have been right in there. I thought he was very harsh disqualifying him. I think it's very harsh that Billy Nelson wants to go on and Crocker contest the IBF title on the back of that, world title on the back of that. I think they should rematch. That's what I think the board should order. And that's my feeling on it. Marcus made a mistake in the moment, and the rematch should be ordered. And I don't know. Billy's a very fair guy, and I don't know why he isn't allowing the rematch.
Well, you know yourself, if Eddie comes up with a big pot of money and puts it under their nose, the rematch
But
could
Dave Caldwell
yeah,
made but Andy, Dave Caldwell made a very good point to me earlier. If Crocker goes and wins the IBF, which he might do, he might just spring back because no one expected him to be that badly beaten by Donovan. If he wins it, then they can get Donovan on, and it's an even bigger fight then.
Yep.
That's fair enough as well.
Just staying on the fight, the head clashes and the point deductions. Obviously, we've seen that happen in fights when you lead in with a head and the referee gives warning after warning. But do you agree with Mark? You mentioned they should have been closer at the end of the fight, but do you agree with Marcus McDonald with the point deductions leading in with the head and whatnot?
Towards Donovan, you mean?
Towards Donovan, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he did seem to, I don't want to say pick on Donovan, but Donovan seemed to be the culprit in his mind all the time. Now, he's the third man in the ring, and he's seeing it how he wants to see it. I'm not suggesting that he was biased against Donovan or towards Crocker, but Donovan set out there to fight Crocker in his own style in a dogfight. We haven't seen Donovan fight like that, and I was very pleased with seeing how tough he was. And most people thought Crocker was going to do damage to Donovan because he'd out-tough him, but he didn't. Tough as they're both very, very tough men, and obviously both Irishmen. But in one of the homes of boxing, Belfast, as you know, is a fighting town. Men, women, and dogs all fight there. Anything fights there, but they're beautiful people. It's one of my favourite cities to go and visit, let alone for fights. And I don't mean that dog expression disrespectfully. What I mean is everybody's prepared to have a fight.
Pets, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Everyone's prepared to have a fight there if you want one. If you don't want one, they're the nicest people in the world. But I do agree that Marcus did seem to have it in for, or Howard Foster, if you want to call him Howard Foster. He seemed to have it in for Paddy, but for me, Paddy won the fight.
Where do you sit? Like for me, I love boxing. You know that. I think boxing is the most beautiful sport in the world. I think it gives us the storylines, it gives us the drama, and you get no more honest conversation when you have two men fighting each other. Now that is that aside. Now when like I said, I love the sport, but for me, when you have judges and referees put in a bad performance or put in a bad, terrible scorecard, and everyone's wondering where the heck did that come from? We don't understand how they got to that point. You feel like there needs to be more transparency with referees and judges so we can understand as to why that happened. I feel that they get to do that, say nothing, and then next week referee and judge again like nothing.
Well, that's the board's fault because they should be allowed. There should be a steward's inquiry into this. Boxing Board of Control steward should look into this. Watch the fight back. Technically, Marcus McDonald was right. Okay, technically, but in the post-analysis of it, when you look at what was happening, we know what we're talking about. We do this week in, week out. We've been doing it from boy to man. We know that something was awry in that fight, in the fact that Donovan loses the fight and that Crocker goes on to fight for a world title after that performance. It doesn't sit right. I've got nothing against Crocker doing it. I've got nothing against Billy Nelson's decision, but it doesn't sit right. And like you say, there should be the opportunity, A, to appeal, to have sometimes have the appeal made public on camera. What's wrong with having a video camera in the appeal? We do it in court now with murders and all sorts of public inquiries with government. What's wrong with having a camera at the Boxing Board of Control and showing what happens afterwards in the inquiry? Marcus McDonnell explaining his position. We don't need to put him in front of 25 YouTube channels and 10 guys from the national media and put him on the national news. But why not have him explain it on a camera in the boardroom in Cardiff at the Boxing Board of Control at a hearing? I think there's nothing wrong with that. It would have helped with the Conor Benn situation as well. Yeah. I think it's a very good suggestion that I make to you that you've just impugned on me. I mean, I think it's time for transparency in that way, because at least we get to see. He might have said, look, I was aware of it. I was moving in. He threw 2 punches after the bell. My feeling was no other way than to disqualify him. And at least we've got that from him. And it's black and white in that way. Yeah. I agree with you. They should be able to explain it.
And it's the scorecards as well. How many times have we seen a scorecard just get put in and everyone's wondering, where the heck did that come from? I agree with you in everything you said. It doesn't have to be in front of IFL and every single YouTube channel on the planet. A camera, the stewards, the referee, and questions just being asked as to how he got to that point in that fight. Because like you say, you've been in boxing long enough, the fight game long enough. When that 10-second clacker goes, the referee will sometimes go, right, boys, 10 seconds, and he'll be poised, ready to jump in. Especially in a fight where a fighter's getting on the ropes and he's getting teed off. The referee's there, poised. So as soon as that bell goes, the referee puts his body between the 2 fighters, puts his body in the line because he might get hit. But he does do that. He puts his arm in and splits the 2 fighters up. Marcus McDonnell was like 6 feet away from the action. So I want to understand that side of things. I mean, technically by the book, like you say, he was correct in what he did, but he should have been closer to the action. Is that a fair point?
Yeah, it's a very fair point. And I mean, what you're saying there also springs to mind, makes me think I'd like to have heard from the judges from the Hamza Shiraz Carlos Adames fight, for example, how they scored it like that, or even at the weekend with Lamont Roach and Tank Davis, because obviously one judge had it for Tank Davis, 115, 113, didn't he? And then two cards drawn. I think that's right. Yeah. You know, I do think we're our own worst enemy administratively sometimes in the sport, that we don't. I mean, weirdly, it adds to the debate and it adds to the viral nature of our sport. But I don't want action replays and VAR in the sport. No. It slows it down too much. There's no point doing it. But retrospectively, I think we should be able to look. I scored Buatsi and Callum Smith 6 rounds apiece. I gave 2 swing rounds to Joshua Buatsi in that fight. All the highlights in my head are Callum Smith, yeah? And all the highlights in my head are for Bivol against Beterbiev Bivol, but I still scored it 7-5 to Beterbiev. I don't mind explaining my card. I have to. I'm broadcasting it live. Yeah. And I know that, you know, we're not always right with everyone, but it's our opinion of the fight. I picked Bivol to win. I'm glad he won. I picked Hamza Shiraz to win on points. I think the boxing gods were smiling on him. I scored it 9-3 to Adames, or at the very worst 8-4. Look, I scored Callum Smith and Buatsi a draw, and I was thinking, God, what was going on? Until I ran into Billy Nelson at the airport in Riyadh, and he said, I had it 6 apiece as well. I was watching it. I had it 6 apiece. And Billy knows his stuff. You know, he knows his shizzle. So it is a sport of opinions, and I think you make a really good point, and I agree with you completely, and I concur on the fact that we should have more transparency over, especially when things go wrong, because it just leaves conspiracy theorists in a very powerful position. When I don't think there are underhand things going on. I just think it's a very fast moving sport. Expect the unexpected. Anything can happen. And it's just how people react. Sometimes they don't react quickly enough. as we'll go on to talk about in America at the weekend.
Well, that's a good segue. Let's talk about, because we're talking about transparency, and I've seen a
Good
lot
job
of.
I'm here, isn't it?
Oh, you're good. You're smooth. You're a smooth man, Gareth, and that's what I love. That transition into the American fight with Tank Davies and Lamont Roach. Now you were talking about transparency, and I was watched the Ariel Hawani show, and he had I think it was is it Kev Idek? Is it Kev Idek?
No,
Yeah,
Keith Idek,
Keith
very,
Idek.
very
Sorry.
good boxing journalist. Very
Exactly.
long-standing
And
friend of mine. I'm delighted he lost a load of weight because he looks fit now.
yeah, and I watched that with Keith, and Keith was saying that Steve is a great referee.
He is.
We're not going to hear why that. What you start the count, then you stop the count, and then you said something strange to Tank, saying that looked like a knockdown. Well, if it looks like a knockdown, it might just be a knockdown. So start the count. It was a strange one.
Yeah, but Andy, if a man takes a knee, he's taken a rest. He's called a timeout. You can't call your own timeout. If you're beating the shit out of me, yeah, when we fight, and I go, whoa, hang on a minute, Andy, I need to go gentleman's break
Oh
here.
no,
No, exactly. You're going to hit me when I'm on a knee, and
yeah.
you're going to go count him. He's done. No, the truth is, he took a knee. He should have been deducted a point. When he went over to his corner, and the cornerman put his head to the ropes, and he had whatever it was, wiped the Vaseline in his cornrows or whatever it was that was disturbing him. He could have been disqualified for that. That's tampering during the round. The referee gave no permission. He didn't call the doctor up and say, wipe the blood from a cut. The referee is in charge of it. The boxer can't call a timeout. Tank reminds me of Floyd Mayweather at his most controlling, when Floyd believed the referee should be in there in his corner during fights. There was a time when he was like that. Remember when he fought Victor Ortiz, and Ortiz went to give him the fist bump after the headbutt. Can't remember who the referee was now. It can't be Mills Lane because that's too long ago. It was Joe Cortez, I believe.
Yeah, maybe you're right. Yeah.
And Cortez said, right, touch gloves. And Mayweather went, no, I'm going to give him a left-right. And he knocked him out. He didn't do the fist bump. He knocked him out. I was there. And everyone was dismayed. But the point is that Floyd Mayweather took it upon himself to be the A side, took it upon himself to be in control. And Gervonta is a superstar. And I think Steve Willis was so shocked by the moment that he didn't. It was such a weird thing. It's like when Katie Taylor was knocked down by Chantel Cameron, and she was hit and she went straight backwards and wasn't counted, and the referee treated like a slip. Do you remember in Dublin? There are moments when they're switched on, but they're so surprised by what's happened, it throws them and they don't know how to react. And I think that's what happened. He should have lost the fight. I had him losing by a point anyway to Lamont Roach on a very subdued, very sluggish night. Does he belong in the pound-for-pound rankings now?
That is the question. And like, if that knockdown was scored within 114 scorecards, then it would have been a majority decision or split decision to Lamont Roach anyway. So
Exactly.
Again, this is one of them fights which kind of demands the rematch. It should happen next. Same as Crocker Donovan.
I agree with you. Rematch next. For Davis's future, in my view, he needs to do it next. I've never seen him looking so subdued. The power, the jack in the box punches that spring from nowhere weren't there. The timing was off. He kept getting caught by Lamont Roach, taking nothing away from Roach, by the way, who valiantly stepped up from super featherweight and probably will stay at lightweight now. But there's my argument is that let's not be too hard on Tank. He's had an off night. He's 30-0-1 with 28 knockouts. I know people say that his record flatters to deceive. Apart from Ryan Garcia, there should be a Teo Lopez, a Shaka Stevenson, a Devin Haney, a Keyshawn Davis on his record now. He should have fought all these guys as well. But how much of that is down to Al Heyman and Premier Boxing Champions keeping him away from some of those guys? Because he's the only guy that's not in the diaspora of Turkey Al Sheikh and the Saudis now, isn't he?
Nice word, Gareth, man. I've never heard that word before.
Diaspora. In the spread of, because we've seen that diaspora of Turkey Al Sheikh go from Riyadh season to London to Los Angeles to New York. We'll see it to America and Africa, I'm sure. But Tank Davis and Al Heyman are nowhere to be seen. They're not in the diaspora.
That's a lovely word, man. That's why I love talking to you, man, because you make me smarter every day. I'm learning something new every day, Gareth. It's the lightweight division for me should be the best division in boxing. Lomachenko's in there, whether he comes back from injury and he still fights again. You mentioned all them names, so in reality, those guys should be fighting each other and just make the lightweight division the best division in boxing, but it's not happening, which is a shame for
Well,
boxing.
Tank Davis, Shakur Stevenson. I mean,
Keisha,
anywhere from 135 to 147, Gervonta should be able to fight. Look what Terence Crawford's doing against Saul Canelo Alvarez, stepping up to 12 stone to fight him. You know,
mm,
and I think we may see Boots Ennis, not Boots Ennis, Virgil Ortiz do that as well. Who I think is a very, very special fighter who's underplayed in the sport. But look, Gervonta Davis puts himself out there, Mr. McCart, to be loved and hated. We know his background, children's homes in Baltimore. He's from, you've seen The Wire, that
yeah,
first
yeah, yeah,
series, haven't you? He's
yeah.
from that place. It was crack central. He grew up in lots of children's homes. He's been through all kinds of weird shit. I mean, I've had the privilege of interviewing him a couple of times. It's so hard to get him to open up. He's got some issues outside the sport with, I think, depression and kind of mental discapacities that are up and down in his life. It's clear to see he could easily implode, and I don't want him to be lost to the sport. I think he's very special. For me, if at his very best he could go to number one pound for pound in the sport, he's shown that kind of that prospective skill that he could be one day. If he beat all those five names I just mentioned, I think he would be.
Mm. You mentioned briefly there, another good segue, and I'll probably make this the last topic here is you mentioned the 140-pound division. Now, Ryan Garcia, Teofimo Lopez, and Devin Haney fighting on Times Square, just a three-man card. When you've got those three names, just those three names on a card, what are we expecting from that fight week? I mean, this is going to be
Well,
chaotic, right?
well, Ryan Garcia and Rolly Romero, I imagine is going to be at welterweight. I
Mm.
imagine. Devin Haney's fighting Jose Ramirez, stepping up to welterweight. Teo Lopez is fighting Arnold Barboza at light welter, 140, 10 stone. What would have been for Jack Catterall, by the way? Oh man, the nearly man, the man
Mm.
in limbo. What a shame, and thoroughly deserved. Look, I think what we're seeing there is if Ryan Garcia, obviously the press conference is later today. I
Yep.
mean, we're all being asked if we would go over, but we've been doing so much travel recently that it's just not possible. I think if either Ryan Garcia or Devin Haney lose, we might see Teo Lopez as their opponent, all at welterweight. I think this is all at welterweight. It'll happen.
Yeah, I
Um,
agree.
and I think Teo Lopez, obviously it's a semi-final for Garcia and Haney because I mean, listen, even if one of them loses, I wouldn't mind seeing them fight again. But I think Teo's there maybe with that thinking that let's get him in the Riyadh season mix or the Ring Magazine mix. But if he wins and one of them loses, you can always match them. It's still a brilliant fight.
Mm.
Um, so those three on Times Square against very good opponents, even though all three of them, you've got to say they're the A side to the B plus side that they're fighting. 2,000 seats, Times Square. You've been there.
Yeah,
You've been
that's
to
what I was going
Jimmy's Corner.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say to you. Times Square, Gareth, man, what a spectacle that will be.
Absolutely. 2,000 people. Book your hotel room overlooking it if you can right now. I think we're going to have to spend the afternoon in Jimmy's Corner. You know Jimmy's
I know
Corner, yeah?
Jimmy's Corner, yeah. I know
Yeah,
Jimmy's
if
Corner.
you and I go, we've got to spend the afternoon in Jimmy's Corner. You'll be on the soda water, I'll be on the tequilas.
Oh,
And
mate,
then
no,
we'll
no, 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 no. I might have a wee tequila with you. In fact,
have we
We're
tequila.
in Jimmy, no, no, we're in Jimmy's Corner. A whiskey.
Lovely. You have a whiskey, I'll have a wee tequila, and maybe a large tequila, and then we'll saunter down to Times Square, which is literally 2 minutes walk away, and we'll watch a balmy evening fight in on May the 2nd. I cannot wait for it. It's the week after Conor Benn and Chris Eubank Jr. sell out Tottenham Hotspur. I want to ask who you think's going to. I'm going to segue to that in a minute. Brilliant idea. I love the fact they're talking about events in Alcatraz,
Yep.
under the Eiffel Tower. I've come up with Stonehenge in a field next to Stonehenge on a
Edinburgh
moonlit
Castle.
night.
I'm,
Where?
I want to be selfish and say Edinburgh Castle.
Oh, absolutely. Listen, we've had Joe Calzaghe fought at Cardiff Castle
Hmm.
once. Trying to remember was it Byron, someone or other he fought? Cannot remember now. But he fought there with, and I remember Joe telling me he could see the seagulls above during the fight. Weird thing that he remembered. Edinburgh Castle, what a setting. We could
Yeah.
do it down in the square with bleachers, with a castle up in the back. I mean, that what's it called? We could do it up at Thingy's Seat.
Arthur Seat.
We could do it up at Arthur's Seat, make everyone walk all the way up to the
Yeah.
top, light the place. I once Yas Island Golf Course outdoors for
Wow.
Rising
Yeah.
Stars Arabia was brilliant.
Yeah. Yeah.
It felt like a Bond movie set. In fact, you looked like a great Bond villain if you'd been there that night.
So I want to go a big, thick beard as well, but
Yeah, no,
shaved
you
head.
should be saying, no, I look like Sean Connery because my
Yeah.
name is Bond, James Bond.
10 no's mean yes.
Tim knows me. Yeah. Look, it's really exciting they're doing it at Times Square.
100%, definitely.
Only Turkey could come up with that, and he's doing great things with the Ring magazine at the moment. Get the latest Ring magazine, by the way, on the cover. Chris Eubank and Conor Benn. I wrote the cover story.
Well, listen, talk about it then. We've got 7 minutes before this Zoom runs out. We're almost done. Talk to me about a quick brief of the two press conferences, the hatred between the two men. What this fight is going to be the biggest British boxing fight of the year, and we're only in April. This might just take it.
Well, it's not bigger than if I've got to say, if Anthony Joshua and Tyson Fury happens, it's probably bigger. But this is enormous, and it spans 3 generations. You know, we grew up loving their fathers, Chris Eubank Senior and Nigel Benn. Who's fooling who was that first fight 35 years ago? Where did the years go? You're probably still in primary school. But I was a teenager. No, 35. I wasn't actually. I was even older than that. I was in my 20s. I become a father. I shouldn't lie about my age. But I think it's a terrific fight. I think Chris Eubank and the 2 press conferences last week was genius, even though I thought the egg thing was a bit of a disgrace. But I suppose without it the week wouldn't have been as egg-citing, and Eggy Hearn wouldn't have had so much excellent fun around the whole promotion. But
it's extremely personal now, though, isn't it?
It's extremely personal right now. And I love the way Chris Smashed Eggs Eubank owned Eddie Hearn in the 2 press conferences. Eddie, calm down, Eddie. Because no one can put it on Eddie, but he was erudite, articulate, finessed, and I thought he owned the 2 press conferences. And I still think it's a very hard fight for Conor Benn. He'll be dangerous early and dangerous late if the fight goes 12 rounds, because Chris Eubank is getting older.
There's loads of variables to this fight. There's the rehydration clause, there's the ages, there's the Conor coming up in weight, the father's name's on the line still, even though it's not about the fathers anymore, but the father's names are on the line. It's a fantastic fight. And like, just a wee personal thing for me, it's nostalgia. You mentioned I was 7 years old. I can remember watching that fight with my dad, even the rematch with my dad on ITV, I think it was back then, wasn't it? ITV,
it was.
Back in the day. And I can remember watching it on the couch with my dad, and then 35.
It was 17 million viewers, something like that.
I know, it's ridiculous. And like I say, now I'm interviewing their sons 30 odd years later, which is a weird sort of 360 or 180.
But it's almost unheard of in boxing, because I can't remember another instance where the 2 sons of 2 world champions fought each other. The only thing I can ever remember, certainly in my time, in the last 3.5 decades, all I can recall is Layla Ali and Jackie Frazier Lyde, the daughters of Ali and Frazier. I covered that in a circus tent in Verona, New York in June 2001. I went over to cover that. They had a terrific scrap, Layla and Jackie. And the old men were there. Joe Frazier and Muhammad Ali was there in a golf cart. Came in a golf cart. Tito Trinidad was there that day. It was star-studded, but it was a big circus tent with about 8,000 people in, won by Layla Ali. That's the only one I can remember where you've got the daughters of fathers. I can't remember the sons of fathers fighting in such a major event. And if you recall, a couple of years back, Chris Eubank was saying, no, it'll never happen. We're too far apart in terms of career and weight differential. And like you say, it's become very, very big. And I think Chris Eubank's getting 10 million for this. When he said diabolical number.
Yeah, I seen your interview. I think it was.
Well, how much do you think he's getting then?
Well, it's definitely up there. It's definitely in that tens of millions. Anyway, if it's low 10 million, 12 million, it's definitely up there. Definitely. And listen, it's prize fighting, isn't it? So always aim high. He said himself, like, I'm going to give him a diabolical number so we can thingamajiggy. And he's like, yeah, okay, that's fine. So fair play.
And then went, no, Turkey went done, and he went, damn, I should have asked
Instead
before.
of asking
We've
more.
all been there. We've all
Always
been
aim high. Always aim high. Well, I've not been there yet. I've not been in a business deal yet that I've aimed high. But Gareth, listen, I always love speaking to you, my friend.
Price or Jonas this weekend?
Price or Jonas? That's a good fight. I seen their face off. So it's a great fight, and you've got you can't really say women's age and stuff like that. You can't really mention that, but Jonas.
Jonas is 40 already. She's
Yeah,
40.
40, and you're coming up against a young, hungry fighter in Price.
Olympic champion.
Exactly. So it's going to be a good one, and I can't wait for it. So it's a good fight, and we've got fight with Nick Ball the fall next weekend. Do you know what I mean as well? So
You're going?
Yeah, I'll be there. I'll be in Liverpool for that
I'll
one.
see you there with TalkSport. Yeah, I'll be there.
I'll see you then. Anything else you'd like to add, Gareth?
Well, I'm pleased that what's his name? Ben Whitaker's going to go under the tutelage of Andy Lee. I think that's really good. I think boxing's in a really healthy place. I mean, I can't remember a year that's got so many events ready already. You know, all the way to September. Crawford and Canelo. Who are you picking? Or you don't pick, do you?
I don't pick, but if you put a gun to my head, I'll say Canelo. I just think Canelo listen, I think Crawford would be a live dog in that, and Crawford is strong. I mean, he looks thick. Well, I was Saudi when I saw him out there, looked big, but
he looks thick. He looks fat, PHAT, doesn't he? Yeah, he does.
PHAT.
Cool. I think if it's a close fight, they'll do another one as well.
Yeah, 100%. And hope they do. I hope they do. And hopefully I'm out there in September for that, because that's a fight that I would love to be with. But Gareth, like I say, we've got a minute left on this.
we made it sing, baby. It's lovely to see you, as always.
And I'm looking forward to seeing you in Liverpool. We'll grab a coffee.
Lovely. Or even a wee tequila.
A wee tequila. A whiskey for me and a tequila for you. Gareth,
cheers, mate.
Cheers, mate. Thank you. I'll see you in the next one.